what is called a super postdoc.
Okay.
I'm a Hyderabadi. Okay. I'm a Hyderabadi. I don't say that I'm from Telangana. If you work like a bull, all you produce is bullshit. In that aspect, I think we are one of the coolest lab in the institute. Maybe you shouldn't tell this to others. I'm just very happy doing science.
Hello everyone, I'm Suchibrata and you are watching SciTalk. The guest we have today for SciTalk is an Associate Professor and Deputy Chair Biology at IISER Pune. Let's welcome Dr. Sudha Rajamani.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. So we'll start from the first question that I see on the research page of yours on your website, which is how did life generate originally, or chemically it was maybe?
So there is this notion of how chemistry might have transitioned to biology on the early earth, and this area of research is called the chemical origins of life, which is what we do in the lab. It broadly comes under the umbrella area of astrobiology, where the goal is to try and understand how life originated not just on our planet but probably on other earth-like planets in the universe. What we particularly are interested in the lab is to try and understand how the most primitive forms of cellular entities might have come about, and even before those entities might have come about, very early on, prior to that, roughly 4 billion years ago, which is shortly after the earth formed, there's a lot of interesting chemistry that set the stage for this transition from chemistry to biology. So we're very interested in this realm of research called prebiotic chemistry. So we're very interested in understanding how some of the monomers pertinent to biological molecules came about, how those monomers form these long strings of polymers to essentially make biopolymer-like molecules. If you look at our cells, it's predominantly made by biopolymers. You have carbohydrates, you have nucleic acids like DNA and RNA, you have proteins, which are the workhorses of the cell. All these are polymeric entities.
Yes.
So in the field, there is a reasonably good notion of how the monomeric entities came about.
Okay.
But how do you go from this monomeric space to an oligomeric space is something that is still sort of lacking a lot of answers. And this is one of the questions we are very interested in, because if you only can go from this monomer to the polymer space, can you form what is called informational polymers. And if you look at it, all of life is encoded in information, and the informational molecule in your cells and my cells are DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, which allows for life to perpetuate itself. So we are very interested in understanding what might have the early informational molecules look like, and how did they come together with the extracellular compartmental layer to form the oldest forms of cells, which we call the protocells.
Okay. So if you break these codes, like how life generally originated, do you think that one day in lab we can synthesize life, or you can make life in lab?
So this is a very interesting question that you asked. In principle, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And roughly about, I want to say 4.5, 5 years ago, a very big name in our field, who was already a Nobel laureate and got his Nobel Prize for some other kind of work that he did prior to joining the chemical origins of life field or working in this realm. He basically said that maybe 5 to 6 years from now we'll be able to synthesize life in the lab. And this was about 5 years ago. Have we been able to synthesize life in the lab after he made that statement 5 years ago? The answer is no.
Yes.
But are we closer to it than what we were in 1953 when the original set of experiments that set the stage for this field happened? The answer is yes. When is it going to happen is anybody's guess, but the pieces, different pieces of the puzzle that takes us closer to this question that you asked is kind of getting better and better and better. We have been able to answer a lot of the different pieces of the puzzle, but still there is a good bit left. So I think maybe a couple of years more, we'll see.
We'll
or maybe
see.
5 years more.
Okay. So the name of your lab is The Cool Lab, right? Like COOL, cool. So what is so cool about your lab, or what do you do at the lab? Like what are the research work you are doing?
So the reason we are the cool lab is just because we are also the chemical origins of life lab, and it's an acronym for that. But we're also really cool in the sense that we are asking one of the most fundamental questions that is out there. All of us wonder, where did we come from? When we ask where did we come from, we basically are fundamentally asking the question, how did life even come about on Earth? So in that sense, what we're doing is really cool. And the other very cool aspect of the kind of research we do is it's highly interdisciplinary in nature.
Okay.
We tend to use tools from various areas of sciences to be able to answer this question. For example, in our own lab, we use tools from biochemistry, from organic chemistry, from geochemistry, from molecular biology, and we also collaborate with physicists who do experiments on computers, computational modeling and stuff. We use this very diverse approach to answer the questions that we are interested in. In that aspect, I think we are one of the coolest labs in the institute. Maybe you shouldn't tell this to others.
Okay. So any student who wants to join your lab, any message to them? Like, what do you want in them?
We are looking for highly enthusiastic students who are very open to what might be possible. Coming with a lot of preconceived notions, for that matter, not just to work in an astrobiology lab, but to work in any area of research, actually does more harm than good, because you just come with these blinders, with these notions that this is how you think things might work, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I'll just say, any student of science, don't lose your sense of wonder. Just be. It's nice to continue to have the childlike enthusiasm that you had as a child.
Yeah.
So continue to keep it and be very open. And please remember that since this is a science that wasn't taught to you in your school, in your undergrad or your master's course, there's going to be a steep learning curve, because there's a lot of reading of the background that you have to do. But if you're open to all of these, my lab is most open to having students like you.
Okay. So as you said, astrobiology is not part of undergrads or grads or in universities. Do you think it should be a part of their courses?
You're touching upon a very important point. It is extremely important for one to have grounding in some area of sciences. I already said that astrobiology is a very interdisciplinary area.
Yeah.
Plus, it deals with everything from cosmology to molecular biology and feeds off of sciences, which include geology, paleontology, chemistry, biology, physics, and math.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for everyone to be an expert in everything.
Yes.
So it's very crucial for a student to have a sound grounding in their favorite areas of natural sciences and mathematics. They use the undergrad program as it exists currently in colleges to do that. What one can envisage is a master's program. Master's programs are typically anyways programs which allow you to specialize.
Yes.
So maybe at the level of master's program, you can have an astrobiology program. I didn't do a MSc in astrobiology.
Yeah.
I didn't do a PhD in astrobiology.
Okay.
I'm a biochemist by training, and I work on sickle cell anemia.
Okay.
What I call cosmic convergence of events led me to this science.
Okay.
Completely by chance, and I just love the cosmos.
We'll
for
talk
that. I'm
about
glad
that.
it happened, yes.
Okay.
So I will say, you love geology? Fantastic. Be sure that you have a real sound grounding in geology. Understand all aspects about it. You love geology and biology? Please do courses in both. I do understand many undergrad colleges do not have such unique combinations, but these days there's a lot of digital content out there. There are MOOC courses out there.
Yes.
So if you love geology a little more than biology, you might as well do your BSc in geology, but do a MOOC courses in basic biology that will
NPTEL
then
courses,
set you up, exactly, NPTEL courses, that will set you up for transitioning into an MSc program in astrobiology. And I'm happy to share that these MSc programs are on the radar. SPPU, Dr. Yogesh Shauche from SPPU was indeed sort of leading a team that got together a year and a half ago to brainstorm about starting an MSc astrobiology program in SPPU. It would have been one of the first in the country, between things taking a while before you can set up a big program like that, because it's very interdisciplinary, and the fact that pandemic happened and turned our lives upside down. We have slightly postponed this plan, and it hopefully will happen sooner than later.
So as you said, you somehow by chance came to the field of astrobiology. So what is that by chance thing?
So there is this thing about how you can survive in science just like in any other profession, only if you have money. So my first postdoc advisor, Dr. Tony Fink, ran out of a very important funding. So I went to the US to, like I said, my PhD was on sickle cell anemia, trying to understand that protein to see if we can make that protein be less problematic, because it causes a very dangerous disease called sickle cell anemia. So the sickle cell hemoglobin is a molecule that I worked on. So I got very interested in protein aggregation disorders in general. So I wanted to work either in Parkinson's or in Alzheimer's field. I ended up joining for my first postdoc in a big name lab who was working on Parkinson's disease. But you know, you could be in a big name lab, a not very big name lab, funding crises can happen. And we went through one funding crisis. So when I thought I would spend at least 3 years in the lab, my postdoc there was cut short to 1.5 years. So I was almost packing my bags to come back to India. I'm talking about this being the US. I was packing my bags to come back to India, but then completely by chance, because of a dear friend's prodding and nudging, I went and talked to who is my scientific godfather or mentor in the field. His name is Dr. Deamer. He was looking for a postdoc with certain skill sets. I had it. So I didn't have anything to lose. So I thought, wow, astrobiology, fascinating, right? It's fundamentally unbelievably interesting.
Blessing in
so I
disguise.
thought, exactly. So I thought, let me give it a shot.
Yeah.
I gave it a shot, fell in love with the field, fell in love with this man as a teacher, just loved everything about the field, decided I'm going to go with it.
Okay,
So
great.
after multiple other training experiences, I came to IISER Pune in 2012 to start the lab.
So how many years of postdoc you did?
I am what is called a super postdoc. It's not normal for somebody to do postdoc for such a long time, even in biology, which is a field that is known to host people in postdoctoral experiences for longish periods. So because of that 1.5 years of that Parkinson's thing, we can't count that. So minus that, I've had 2 postdoctoral experiences in the astrobiology field because, like I said, it's a very vast field and you get thrown in the deep end of the ocean. You've not learned anything about it in your college. So the first postdoc went in trying to literally stay afloat, and by the end of that postdoc, closer to the last third of that period in Dave's lab, I became a much more confident person, but I knew for sure that I wanted to do one other postdoc in the field of astrobiology, which is when I moved to Harvard before I came back. So I'm a super postdoc, and happily so.
So you went to Harvard,
Yes.
which is in India is a big thing because people dream of Harvard. How was the experience there? Like, how was the life there?
So Harvard happened to me completely by chance, right? Dave told me, you're going to get a mail, there's this person who's very interested in your skill set. So if that comes, you should decide if you want to interview. And long story short, she flew me out, I interviewed, I got it, and I joined Irene's lab. I didn't have any preconceived notions of wanting to be in Harvard or anything. I really wanted to be in California, which is where I was, in Santa Cruz. But this happened and I was like, Harvard can't hurt the CV. I literally moved with that kind of an intention and the fact that Irene's work was extremely exciting. She was this really young person with a lot of interesting ideas. So I moved to Irene's lab and Irene promised that the Center for Systems Biology was not necessarily like the quintessential Harvard atmosphere. That comes with a lot of cultural baggage. So this place was very exciting. It had people from different parts of the world and a lot of young people. So there was a lot of energy. So my notion of Harvard would be different from somebody who went to, say, work in the chemistry department at Harvard. But having said that, that place challenged me intellectually the most. So I really doubted my capabilities when I was there because you're surrounded by some of the smartest people. So then you wonder, am I here by mistake? But then that really set the stage for a very rapid growth in my confidence levels and in my understanding of my own capabilities, which finally made me realize I'm ready to start a lab on my own. So in 2010, I started looking for jobs and stuff. And all that was made possible because of that training at Harvard. And just by being at Harvard.
So why IISER Pune? Why not any other institute?
Why IISER Pune? Why not any other institutes? Back then, there were very few places in India which was excited about astrobiology. Now things are changing. But back then, they didn't know what to do with my application. They were like, yeah, it's good. You have a decent pedigree and stuff and background and stuff, but they didn't, probably I think they just didn't know where to place an astrobiologist. Yes, and their coursework doesn't contain courses, but again, like I said, one doesn't have to do astrobiology based courses. One can still train themselves in certain interesting areas of their own sciences and then, I feel like it required people with long-term vision to understand that astrobiology is a cutting-edge science that is going to take off. So I've been around 8.5 years now, and when I was interviewing, it's exactly a decade ago. The 2 visionaries who truly thought I would be a very exciting addition to their institute if I made it beyond all the interviews and everything, turned out to be 2 IISERs. Of course, I interviewed at certain other places like CCMB, like IGIB, but the kind of energy that came from Shashi, who is the reason I kind of eventually looked at IISER Pune as a place that I want to seriously be at, and Dr. Anand Bachawat from IISER Mohali. The interactions with these two people, even before I knew them over emails, the excitement was palpable. They really were happy about the kind of research I was doing. They themselves were reading up about this research quite a bit. Most importantly, I wanted to be in a place where we could actually bring together research and science education at the undergrad level. So science education exists in any undergrad college, but research, the way we do it at IISER, for an undergrad to be exposed to that right from their year 3 in various forms, didn't exist in many other parts of the country. BITS and other IIT courses allowed students to do a thesis in their last year, but nothing like this kind of a program. So I was very excited about this, and I wanted to be a part of this educational revolution, so to speak.
Good choice.
So that's why I'm at IISER Pune, and I love it.
Okay, so let us talk about your life rather than the research. Where did you grow up?
I'm a Hyderabadi. I'm a Hyderabadi. I don't say that I'm from Telangana, because when I left Hyderabad, it was still part of the larger Andhra Pradesh. So for me, my identity is strongly that of being a Hyderabadi. And I traveled quite a bit. So for 12th, I stepped out of Hyderabad. I did my 12th in Chennai. I went to a school there. I went back to Hyderabad for my undergrad. Then for my master's, I went back again to back then Madras. I was at the University of Madras. I was in Department of Zoology. And then I went on to do my PhD in National Institute of Immunology. I was kind of naive in my master's. I kind of wanted to do clinical immunology. And I got into National Institute of Immunology, so I was like, there's going to be a lot of clinical immunology labs. But I went there and there was only one faculty there, and she had already moved to Deamer. And I was like, shit. So then I decided, let me explore what other fundamental interests I have. And then I realized that you have a 6-month coursework. And at the end of the 6-month coursework, if you are based on your ranking, you get to choose your labs. I was done with ranking by then. Too many exams in my life. So I said, no, I'm taking my coursework easy. Jo aayega, aayega. I was last in the group of 11 people. Or we were 13. Maybe we were 13. I was last. So everybody else chose their labs. And then I was left with a choice of few labs. That's when I sat and thought seriously about what it is that I want to do. And then this whole thing about, I love studying molecules. I love studying interactions between molecules. So biochemistry sort of is what I wanted to do. That is when I went and talked to Dr. Roy, and when I joined his lab, I knew exactly that this is what I wanted to do. And also it helped that when I went to talk to him, he basically told me one phrase, and that stays with me even today. And I don't say it explicitly to my students, but I make sure it's a philosophy I practice. He said something to the following extent, and I think I'm also quoting him verbatim. He said, if you work like a bull, all you produce is bullshit. Basically what he was trying to tell me was, you put in a lot of thought into your research rather than just going boom, 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 boom with experiments without putting forethought. And that has gone a long way in shaping the scientist that I am. I don't think he has any clue about it. If he's ever going to see this interview, he might be a tad embarrassed maybe, I don't know. But Dr. Roy, this was a very important aspect of my growth as a scientist.
I loved the dialogue, by the way. I will always remember it.
Yes, see, I've never forgotten it.
And I will say these things to PhD students as well.
Absolutely.
So we'll do a rapid fire round. That's what we call it. And if you don't want to answer, you can say pass. These are fun questions. You can say anything. These are nothing related to like seriousness. You don't have to use your brain basically.
Which I don't do most of the time anyways.
This is about award first thing. Any award or grant that you are interested in, you expect that you will get someday, or that you want to have it someday?
The answer is no. The closest I got to getting something that would have felt that I would have really been ultra excited about is this international grant that we applied to. We had a 2 and 3 chances to make it to the final, to get the, we made it to the final round, and 2 and 3 chances to get it, but we just missed it. That is the only regret. No major notions of awards or anything. I'm just very happy doing science.
Fine. A one-word comment on your own research work. One word, just.
Invigorating. Invigorating is stimulating. Every day I like to come back to do my work, mainly because of the stuff that we get to do in the lab. Yes, it's fun to do a lot of these other things which are extremely important for a research institute, but it's those results that my students get and come and discuss with me.
Yes.
You just have these notions when you start out something, and science repeatedly reminds you that there's only so much you can guess or you can predict.
Yes, yes.
So there's a lot to learn. So it's very stimulating, very invigorating that way.
Okay, a one-line advice to an aspiring PhD student, like who wants to do a PhD in future?
I've already alluded to this. Keep your childlike enthusiasm intact.
Yes.
No stupid questions, so childlike enthusiasm is super important to be able to do fun research.
Okay, great. Any hobbies that you miss now, that because of your busy schedule you are not able to pursue it anymore?
Choreography.
Okay, wow.
I was part of
that was unexpected. Anyway,
I was part of a group of 4 people in PhD, and prior to that, even in my undergrad and in my school, I've been dancing all my life.
Okay.
No formal training in dance, but I just love to dance.
Okay.
So in my PhD, we had, for those 5 years, 4 of us were together, and we were this team which kind of did absolutely fun choreography.
In PhD?
In PhD. We are still known for our Chaya Chaya dance.
Wow.
And that is something I really miss. Since I've come to IISER, the only time I've had a chance to do it is when we did a flash mob kind of a thing.
Okay.
And I was one of the 5-6 core people who kind of put it together, and we did this in honor of Shashi. I thoroughly loved it, and that's when I realized
should do it more then.
I miss it. Yes. We thought we'll do another flash mob to welcome some of the students that have come back. Unfortunately, 24 hours in a day is a little too small.
Yeah. So IISER might have some functions or programs where faculties can participate, right? Is there any?
So every year in October, there is this Karma, a student cultural festival.
Karma, yes.
And Karma is a place where we can completely showcase this.
Okay.
There is this secret dream of mine that a bunch of faculty, I can get them together and we do a show at some point. This year could have been that year because our flash mob happened about a year and a half ago. Last year it was not possible. I was one of the faculty coordinators of Karma, and there was just too much going on. But this year could have possibly been that year. Unfortunately, pandemic washed out.
Next year.
Hopefully next year.
Hopefully next year, yeah. So you were part of one expedition. We are going to talk about it in our next question. So that was fun, I hope. So
lots of fun.
Lots of fun. So do you wish to go another expedition like that? If yes, where?
Do I wish to go for another expedition like the one that I
Yes.
did back in 2016 to Ladakh? Absolutely. Where would I like to go? Back to Ladakh again, because there's just so many unexplored places. But if we sort of think about this more in an international level, there are places in New Zealand and in Chile, the Atacama Desert, that I would love to go to, because they have a lot of importance for astrobiology. There are analog sites there which allow us to better understand how some of the astrobiological processes that we try and understand in the lab might have panned out in more realistic geological settings, and that's why Ladakh is super exciting. So maybe if everything goes well, next summer, which is in summer in Ladakh is July through September. If everything goes well, I'm off to Ladakh again.
Wow.
2016 was the first time we donned the hats of field experimentalists, and we loved it thoroughly.
So tell us more about your expedition that happened in 2016.
This one brought together a bunch of scientists from 3 different parts of the world. There were a bunch of scientists that came from NASA. There were a bunch of scientists that were associated with Mars Society in Australia. And there were a bunch of scientists from IISER. Me and my students, actually. We were the 3 scientists then. And a bunch of scientists from BSIP. Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences from Lucknow. Who already, some of the scientists in BSIP already extensively do field work in Ladakh.
It is a big group.
Yeah, we were a group of 30-ish people in total. So we also had 3 different demographics represented in the group. Scientists, educators, so I kind of belong to both these groups. And the third one were students. So we had this group of 3 different kinds of people who had different goals to come out there and do these field work and be part of this expedition. It was just unbelievable. It was just fantastic. It was coordinated by this then graduate student, senior graduate student, who's currently the director of Center of Excellence in Astrobiology in Amity University, Siddharth Pandey. So he was the one who brought this group together, and we just had the most fun.
Where did you stay?
Where did we stay? We stayed in tents in a
Wow.
lot of places.
Okay.
So Leh is the only place where we stayed in a hotel.
Okay.
And you actually have to acclimatize yourself before
Okay.
in Leh, before you take off to
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
even more higher level, higher reaches of
Altitudes and all.
higher altitudes. Thank
Yeah.
you. So we went to Khardungla and we went to Changlangla and those kinds of places. And
Yeah.
then we went to certain other places which now unfortunately are close to
Close?
where
Okay.
problems are happening between India and China. But
Okay.
these
Okay.
geographical locations host important analog sites that have fundamental implications for understanding some of the astrobiological processes and some of the ways in which we can think about when we think about sending expeditions to other exoplanets or to Mars
Okay,
or to
okay.
Moon. So in that sense, it was just unbelievable to be part of this group of people where a lot of them had field biology, field expertise,
Okay.
field research expertise. We were complete novices.
What was the outcome of that expedition?
The outcome of the expedition was a lot of fun, a lot of learning,
Okay.
and papers. Papers
Okay.
are always a readout,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So we brought back samples from hot spring sites
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I saw that, yes.
Yeah, hot spring sites are touted as one of the important niches where this transition from chemistry to biology is thought
boiling
to have
water,
happened
right?
on the early Earth. Yes, the temperatures can vary. Hot springs are anything, if I'm not wrong, which are 50 degrees and above. So
Okay.
some of the hot springs that we dealt with were at 75 degrees and 80 degrees
Okay.
and 90 degrees. So, and these were all of a certain pH, and there are notions about what are the places on early Earth that life emerged. Hot springs are one of
Yeah.
these important sites.
Okay,
When we
okay.
do experiments in the lab, we are kind of reducing our question to answer it in very simple terms to understand how the processes work. But that is enough only to give us a fundamental understanding. If you want to get a more realistic notion of how
Okay,
these experiments
okay.
happen, you need to bring back samples from hot spring sites. They are rich in a lot of things, right? Because they're constantly interacting with the mineral, so minerals
Just
present
one
and
question
stuff.
here. Why sample collection from hot springs? Like,
For us, because of the work we do,
Okay.
we are very interested in understanding how these informational polymers
okay,
came under early Earth conditions in these hot spring-like scenarios, in these tidal pools which could facilitate
Okay.
wet-dry cycles at high temperatures.
Okay,
So we are very
okay.
interested in these niches for these reactions. But we work with what are called buffers in the lab, where everything is very, very precisely controlled.
Okay,
But
yeah.
if you go out into the nature, into an analog site, there's a lot of parameters out there which is beyond your control.
Yes.
So one of the ways to deal with this is take your experimental setup there and work there, which always is not possible. You might be able to do some steps of the experiment there, but
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
have to bring the samples back for analysis with some high-end instruments which cannot be moved. The other thing is to bring back the water samples
Yeah.
after kind of minimally treating them to keep their consistency intact.
Yeah.
Bring it to the lab and work on them, which is what we
Sampling,
did.
yeah.
Exactly, which is what we did, and we got some very interesting results that got published. And we also put out a expedition paper which talked about why Ladakh is very interesting as an astrobiologically relevant site.
Okay.
And there's still more work coming out of all of these interactions.
So you are also involved in outreach work?
Yes.
Yes. What are those things, that projects you are associated
So
to?
there is no real set project. I work with the Science Activity Center where they have these, during the pandemic period, they've had these weekend science,
Yeah.
fun science sessions where they talk to a scientist at the end of
Yes.
the sessions to get some questions answered. So I've participated in that. I give a lot of talks on astrobiology to school children, all the way from school children to master's program students. The reason being, not many people know what goes into doing
Yes.
research in
Yeah.
astrobiology
Yeah.
or what astrobiology is about. So I don't limit myself to doing outreach from IISER to people outside, but I even go to other places to do outreach. Unfortunately, it's not as extensive as I would like for it to be. But
Okay.
for example, I've been to Ahmednagar to give a talk at this college, at this Ahmednagar University, which was super fun. Most importantly, I think one of the coolest things that I've done is to go out to a village as part of the Disha program. Disha has this
Disha,
program where you go out to villages and you spend the weekend there. I didn't spend the weekend there, but I spent a whole day there
Okay.
talking to school children about science in general.
Yeah.
Just not astrobiology.
Yeah,
Maybe I
yeah.
touched upon some things here and there, but science in general. I was super lost without Marathi. I tried all my tuta-futa Hindi, because when I say tuta-futa, my Hindi is good, but scientific Hindi is not something I'm very familiar
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
So between all of that, we had a great time and it
You
was a lot
enjoyed
of
it.
fun. I loved it.
Okay.
So, and other than Science Activity Center, we had something called the Exciting Science Group, which is
Okay.
a joint project that was facilitated by few scientists in NCL and IISER Pune, and they had all these lovely outreach talk opportunities that were there for scientists to be able to engage with students from the vicinity in Pune. And some of the youngest children that I've seen come to these talks were in 4th grade, and they asked some of the most fundamentally nuanced questions that I've ever been asked. So it's a lot of fun doing that. And then there's this Muktangan Science Center. I've given talks there. So I like to kind of, and online. I'd like to be more involved, but this is what I do now.
Okay, so we'll end it here today.
Sure.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good fun. Thank you and thank you.
We hope to do something like this in future as well.
Sure.
And of course, the way you want, because this is the
Yes, I'd love to walk.
Yeah,
I'd love to walk. It allows me to do more of my dance.
Yes.
Other than flailing hands, I can even flail my feet around.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for sure.
Thank you so much.